there's no one herb for a post-traumatic stress disorder, right? It just depends where people are at. But having said that, mimosa bark is one of the herbs I would think is my repertory when working with long-held trauma. And that's where the herbs come in, because they don't work on our brain, they work on our body, and they help us relax and let go that held trauma. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I feel like I've even went to some places I wasn't expecting to go to. So I hope people really enjoy this conversation.
Welcome to the Herbs with Rosalee podcast, a show exploring how herbs heal as medicine, as food, and through connecting with the living world around you. In this episode, I'm joined by CoreyPine Shane for a very thoughtful, nuanced conversation about mimosa as emotional medicine. We explore how herbalists have traditionally worked with this tree, what makes it so unique, and why it's often reached for during times of loss, sadness, or deep transition. We also talk about practical preparations, the flowers, the barks, even elixirs, along with important considerations and cautions. If you enjoy this episode, please give it a thumbs up so more plant lovers can find us, and be sure to stay tuned to the very end for your herbal tidbit. Well, CoreyPine, it's been a long time coming. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. I was trying to think today about where we've met, because I was just trying to think, what's our origin story? Because I feel like I've just always known about you. Maybe we met at a Kiva Fest. My husband, Xavier, said, I think we met him in Montana. And I was like, okay. I don't know. So do you have a memory? I just feel like you've just always been there.
Like the Holy Ghost.
Yeah.
It's holy haunting you. I don't remember exactly, but I did teach the Montana herb gathering a couple times. Were you at the Montana herb gathering?
There? Yep. Yeah, that was such a lovely, sweet gathering. I really loved that gathering. Just what a great, bio-regional, lovely gathring. And I feel like so many of us met each other at the Kiva Fest. So maybe, there's the possibility too. And then, of course, we're herbalists, so we run in the same circles, whether that's the Seven Song crowd, the Ben Zappin crowd, the Howie Brownstein crowd,
right?
All of it. So, yeah. Well, I'm so thrilled that you're on the show, CoreyPine. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, we start always in the same place, which is hearing about you and your origin story, your past story. So I'm excited to hear it.
I know, I feel like I want to get all over twist about this, but when people ask me this, I have a couple of different answers, and I'll try to put that together in just one simple answer. You're asking how I got into herbal medicine. Is that? First off, I used to get really bad headaches when I was migraines. Got terrible migraines when I was a kid, when I was a teenager. And so I remember going to medical doctors, and they're like, oh, when you get a headache, take this pill. And I was like, okay, well, how do I prevent it? And they're like, well, we don't know. Why do I get it? Well, we don't know, but if you have pain, take this pill. I was like, well, I'd rather not have to have the thing in the first place. So that kind of led me into studying holistic medicine. Trying to understand, why does the body do this? Why does our body act like this? How can we prevent disease and not just treat things after they happen? Which is much more of a question of holistic medicine than of mainstream medicine. And then I went to college at Ithaca College in Ithaca, New York, and there I met an herbalist, of which we've already mentioned. But I met Seven Song at a music concert, and we actually just became friends. I had zero intention of becoming an herbalist. I can tell you this because I didn't know what an herbalist was. So how could I have wanted to be one? And this is back in the late 80s. And I just kind of became friends with Seven Song, and he didn't have a phone or a car or electricity or running water for that matter. But because he didn't have a phone, and for those listening, there was actually a day before cell phones, so he didn't even have a landline. And I would actually have to drive 20 minutes down this dirt road to see if he was even home. And I would just go and visit him sometime, and he'd be chopping up herbs. And I'd be chatting with him, like, hey, you want to give a hand? There's a lot of burdock root I need to chop. And like, okay, sure. And like, well, what is this? What is this? What am I chopping? Like, oh, that's burdock root, Arctium lapa. I'm like, what does it do? And so it kind of started, I imagine, in my imagination, it's like, oh, that's probably how people started studying herbalism like hundreds of years ago. They're just like, hey, you're an herbalist. What's that you're doing over there? Need some help? And I just, again, no plan to become an herbalist. I'm just curious. And Seven Song started teaching classes. I started taking his classes. I was just very curious. I was studying nutrition as much as I was, studying herbal medicine. And then I was graduated college. I decided to move out to Seattle. So I was like, out on your turf, out in Washington State, and tooling around, and spent 6 months just traveling around the Northwest, exploring, camping out in the Cascades for like weeks at a time. And I was hanging out with a lot of people who were just had less access. I would say, probably they would say like, homeless by choice for the most part, travelers, road dogs, gypsies, rainbow kids, rainbow adults, rainbow elders, and rainbow gathering, that is. And people were, I had one of Michael Moore's books with me, like Medicinal Plants of the Mountain West. And I was like trying to identify the plants around me. And I started noticing like, hey, this guy across the campfire, he's got this cough. And then there's this mullein plant over here. I could just go over there and pick the mullein and make a tea. And like, he drank it and he got better. And I remember that the first time that happened, the first time that there was like this, probably like 20-year-old kid with this cough and he couldn't get rid of the cough. And I just started like picking herbs that were just around our campsite. Like had to walk like less than 30 feet to get them. And I picked them and I made a tea for him and he got better. And I was like, oh my God, herbal medicine is not just like a book thing. It's not just something you study. It's something that actually helps people. It's like, and it's accessible. It's free. To at least get the herbs, it's free. The alcohol costs a bit. The bottles cost. But I was like, this is just the people's medicine. I just got like so inspired. And I think I ended up not living in Seattle. I ended up moving back to Ithaca. And that's when I actually studied with Seven Song. That's when I decided like, okay, I'm going to become an herbalist. And then I moved to Asheville a couple years later, Asheville, North Carolina, and started a clinical practice, started like seeing clients. And after a couple years, I was like, I don't really know enough to help people with complex health conditions. So I asked Seven Song where I should go, or who I should study with. And he told me to go study with his teacher, Michael Moore. So I moved out to Bisbee, Arizona, worked at the Bisbee Food Co-op, which was a very strange experience, and lived in the desert and learned a lot from Michael. And then I moved back here to Asheville and I started in herb school.
So it was like the 90s that you were out there with Michael. Sometime
exactly.
In the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love how you like met Seven Song, you became friends, and then you left, and then it's like you came back and you're like, oh, okay, I guess what you're doing is legit. I'll study with you now.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, before I was studying out of curiosity, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. But after, I think after when I came back, I realized, oh, this is actually like real world. This is actually helping people. It became real to me. I bet that there's a lot of, because I run an herb school, I interview each student before they come in. And so often I see that we all, I don't want to say we all, but many of us have a initial injury. We have some kind of initial problem that's either ourselves or just as often like a family member, a sister, a brother, a mom, an aunt, where there was some complex health condition. They went through to mainstream medicine, like, yeah, we don't know what's going on. Maybe here, have some antidepressants, maybe. Or maybe they're just like, hey, the lab tests are normal. It's all in your head. Or whatever happened with them. They weren't able to get helped with mainstream medicine. And so they're coming to herbal medicine as a way to learn how to see healing in a different way.
Hey there. Just a quick note. If you'd like to hear from me in a more personal way, I'd love to have you in my free text community. I send a couple of texts every week, things like behind the scenes updates, herbal thoughts that I'm chewing on, and little sparks of joy I don't always share anywhere else. To join, just text the word root to 1-509-383-8398. And if you ever want to break up, no hard feelings. Just text STOP to the same number and you'll be opted out immediately. My goal is to make it so juicy and so fun that you look forward to getting my texts each week. Okay, now back to the show. Yeah, I'm curious, since that was kind of your entryway, it sounds like you're already studying kind of holistic health, but do you have any like sense of like what you might have done with your life if you hadn't become an herbalist?
I joke, and maybe all you on the podcast maybe you can hear this more, but I kind of joke that like maybe I'd be like a late night jazz DJ.
Mm,
You can see
yeah,
it now, just like,
yeah.
and that was a tune. Now that was the tunes of early John Coltrane, on his tenor sax there. But seriously though, I actually went to college to become a fiction writer. I wanted to be like the next Jack Kerouac. I love the beatniks.
Hmm.
I love Jack Kerouac and Allen Ginsberg and Gary Snyder. I was just really into like Zen and writing and first thought, best thought. And I really, really wanted to become a writer. I actually took a semester off college to focus on writing to see if like, is this really what I want to do with my life? You know, some people get this thing when they're young and they just know what they want to do. And for me, I was in my teenage years, early 20s, and I was still in this place of like, I know that there's something big within me. I have some kind of calling and I don't know what it is. And it was really, really frustrating, to be honest. I felt this like burning desire to do something, but I wasn't sure what that something was. And so I took a semester off college to see if it was writing. And I decided that, yes, I wanted, like, I'm writing poetry, I'm writing stories. At one point, actually, when I was kind of like traveling around the Northwest, I was started writing a novel while I was sitting in a cafe in the university district. And I still have half a novel somewhere stashed away.
Wow. Wow. Well, I have no doubt you would have been an exceptional writer and a DJ as well, but the herbal world's lucky to have you here with us. So were you going to say something, CoreyPine?
Yeah. Sorry, I just had a funny memory because when Seven Song, I moved back to Ithaca, and after a few years, like, yeah, okay, I'm ready for the next stage. This is not where I need to be right at this moment. And so Seven Song started his herb school, and he invited me to attend. And at the same time, I was also looking at the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetics, the Naropa University in Boulder, Colorado. So I remember specifically holding in my left hand the application. I'd already written them. This is back in the days before online applications. So I'd called them up or written them or whatever, and they had like sent me in the mail the application. I had the physical application that I was filling out for the Naropa Institute. And in my other hand, I had the application to Seven Songs Herb School. So I remember this like very specific fork in the road. Like, am I going to become a writer or am I going to become an herbalist?
Any regrets?
No.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I have another question for you because I haven't heard it yet. Is where does Chinese medicine come into this? Because I know that's an important part of your practice.
Oh, yeah, very important. Matter of fact, it's such a basis of my practice that it's actually what my computer is resting on right now is the Chinese materia medica.
Nice, like the Bensky or?
Yeah. This one is Bensky, but I also really like the what is it? Chen and Chen. The Chinese materia medica and pharmacology. Some ways I like that one better, even though Bensky is like the official one. But the Bensky one is the exact right height to get my computer screen at the right, the camera.
Good to know.
Just the right place. Yeah, it's good foundation.
Anyways,
because when you're working on laptops, otherwise. Okay, sorry. To seriously answer your question, though, when I first started studying Western herbalism, it was the late 1980s, and there were books around like the Herb Book by John Lust, which is a book, all respect to Mr. Lust, it's not a book I would recommend. But then again, it was written 50 years ago, so a lot has happened since then. um, there just wasn't a lot out there. And what I saw was like, for whatever reason, my mind, I like systems. I like to have systems and diagnostics and to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. And at that time, Western herbalism seemed very non-systems. It seemed very like, oh, if you get migraines, take feverfew. If your stomach is upset, drink chamomile tea, or maybe fennel, or maybe ginger will help. We don't really know, but here's a list of different herbs you could try that might help with this condition. It just felt very shot in the dark. Try this. If that doesn't work, try this. And I was like, I needed some kind of grounding. I needed some kind of way to think like, and so I started looking at Chinese medicine and like, I mean, Michael Tierra's books were one of the big influences. I was so excited to like finally get to meet him and talk to him at one of the first international herb symposiums that I went to. We got to have a good chat. And it's like, oh my God, like you had this big influence on me. But just this idea of thinking like, oh, instead of thinking about, oh, what are all the herbs for headaches? It's like, okay, well, is this a hot headache? And we use cooling herbs, or is it a cold headache? And we need to like warm things up. Is it excess caused by an excess of whatever is excess in the system? We need to clear things out. We need to use dispersing herbs. Or is it caused by deficiency? We need to like build and nourish. And that just blew my mind. And I've spent the past 35 years trying to figure that out.
Nice. Yeah, it's a very similar path to me too, as well. Just wanting that system, and which ultimately landed me at the Tierra School. So I did their 4-year program. Yeah, but so grateful for that,
Nice.
that foundation. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Hey, it's Rosalee. You know, creating this podcast has been one of the most rewarding parts of my herbal work. And if you found something meaningful here, whether it's a new perspective, a favorite recipe, or just a sense of calm, I want to let you know there's a good way to go even deeper. It's called the Podcast Circle. Inside, you'll get access to live classes taught by some of my favorite herbal teachers, behind-the-scenes updates, and a beautiful library of herbal resources that we've gathered over the years. But more than that, it's a space to connect with fellow plant lovers who care about the same things you do. And truly, your membership helps make this podcast possible. It's how we keep the episodes coming and the herbal goodness flowing. So if you're ready to be part of something more, something rooted in connection, head over to herbalpodcastcircle.com. I'd love to see you there. Well, I am so excited that you chose Mimosa because it's a new plant for the show and one that's so loved. It's easy to love Mimosa, whether you love the tree, the medicine, everything. So I'm excited to dive into this, and wherever you would like to start with Mimosa, CoreyPine.
Quick origin story about Mimosa. In the late 1990s, before I studied with Michael, I was living in a place in Marshall, North Carolina. And one day I was walking up my road and there was this tree that I'd been walking by for months, but all of a sudden it had these like beautiful but small, like sunset colored flowers on it. I don't know how else to describe it. You know, like we think of like mimosa flowers. I think of like a pixie's paintbrush, you know?
Nice.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, like, what is this? And so I had to figure out what tree it was. I had to get out my guidebooks and figure it out. At that time, nobody in Western herbalism was using it that I'm aware of. So I got out my Bensky. I got out my like Chinese Materia Medica to see if Chinese medicine used it, because I learned it was an invasive species from Asia. And I said, oh yeah, there's a great antidepressant herb. And I was like, well, that makes sense. Because just looking at it,
yeah.
Right? It's almost like a little bit of doctrine of signatures there. It's like how you feel when you look at it is how you feel when you drink it.
I like that.
Isn't that nice? And so in Chinese medicine, they use the flowers, they use the bark, they use it differently though. The flowers, as you might imagine, flowers in medicine tend to be more ephemeral in effect. They tend to be more of like a faster, but more quickly dispersed effect. So mimosa flowers are very uplifting. Flowers are very light and feathery, and the effect is very light. It's very like uplifting and upwards, and it brings their energy up and out. It's great for someone to just feel like in a funk, and they're just like, I just need a few hours where I can just feel the sunlight on my face and feel the sunlight on my face, not feel like there's still a cloud in between me and the sun. So it's very uplifting. It's warming. It's an upward moving herb. It just kind of helps. I remember once I was at an herb conference. Someone made a mimosa fizz, which was like a mimosa flower fermented soda, and it felt like what it tasted. Just the bubbles. It kind of bubbled up my emotions. It was just like happiness in a bottle. It's so good. You need to find that recipe.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
So the flowers are a bit more superficial. They last, and the bark is a little bit deeper and slower. The bark is said to kind of like go in and so I use the bark of the mimosa tree. I find that if you harvest it in June, to be clear, when harvesting bark, don't take it right off the tree. You cut the limb and then you debark the limb. It creates a smaller scar for the tree, better for the tree in the long run. And then you get a walking staff with with what is left. Or you have a pounding stick where you can kind of like use to like, I do that sometimes with like the sticks after I've debarked them. I use them to like mash the herb into the tincture because you can never quite get it to all fit in the jar. So you have like an old mimosa stick or a birch stick or willow, something that you've cut, and you can use that to like pound your herbs into the jar. But the mimosa bark is said to go more to the in Chinese medicine, we say the liver meridian. So it's good for more melancholy, stuck emotions. People who are like, they're really like, it feels like they're playing Candyland and they're stuck in molasses swamp. Right?
Yeah.
There's that feeling of like stuck. It actually is a blood mover and a chi mover. It gets things moving. It's not just a happy herb. It actually helps circulate things, which is good to be aware of, because sometimes if people have something they're kind of holding on to, it can break that up, which can be helpful. But in breaking that up and moving that, it can also bring things up. And so sometimes I advise like, hey, by the way, if you take this herb and things start coming up, it could be a good idea to have, if they're going through some stuff, it might be a good idea to have a therapist, and as a adjunct, because you could use this for things like PTSD, for like long held trauma. There's no one herb for a post-traumatic stress disorder, right? It just depends where people are at in the process. I mean, that's one of the great things about learning holistic medicine. It's not like herb for a disease. But having said that, mimosa bark is one of the herbs I would think is my repertory when working with people who have working with long-held trauma that's like really like stuck in their body. Mimosa bark is one of the ones that can help.
It's interesting how you talk about that, CoreyPine, just the movement with it. It's not how it's specifically for the stagnant situation. Maybe, David Winston, he names that stagnant depression, but anytime, like you're saying, you're stuck in the molasses swamp and it's tough to get out on your own. And it's, a plant that's moving in nature.
Right. Yeah. Right. It's a good one. I know David Winston uses it with hawthorn and rose in his like grief relief formula.
Yeah. A powerful, beloved formula, that one. Yeah. And it's, I also really like how you've differentiated the flowers and the bark. And I think that's such a fascinating thing when we have different parts of a plant. And sometimes we use different parts of the plant in the exact same way. Sometimes, like in this situation, there's this difference that's very real and notable. And I encourage folks, if you want to work with mimosa, to try the flowers and try the bark at different times and really get to know them in that way, because it's good to know. And there's a time when you're going to be disappointed if you're working with the flowers expecting more of what the bark has to offer, and vice versa. So it's good to know and have a sense of that as well. With the moving of the liver chi and just how the bark is just kind of working on this level, it's really moving things, and you have some cautions with that of working with a therapist, being aware that it can pull up things. Makes me curious, what are you often working with this as a simple, or are you combining it with other herbs? I'm just kind of curious how you might be formulating with it.
I'm much more of a formulator. I like doing
Chinese medicine.
Exactly. I don't know why, but for some reason early in my herbal career, I just decided I liked odd numbers. I like to do 3s and 5s, 7 if I really have to. And for those listening, I'm sure you know this, Rosalee, but like when you see these Chinese herb formulas that are like 12 or 15 herbs in a formula, those are actually several smaller formulas that have been put together. So they're not just formulating, well, a lot of the classic formulas, they're not just formulating from scratch, throwing 15 herbs in there. They're actually like, oh yeah, I'm going to take this 4-herb formula, mix it with this 4-herb formula, then add 1 or 2 herbs to help kind of balance it out. So I would encourage people not to start out doing 15 herbs in a formula. When you're first starting out, I encourage people just do 1 herb, just do 2 herbs. Get to know when you do smaller formulas, you get to know each individual herb better. But in formula, I would tend to combine mimosa bark with like reishi mushroom is a good one.
Interesting.
Yeah, because I also use that I feel like in Western herbalism, it's often looked as more like for an immune modulator, like balancing the immune system, but it's in classic Chinese medicine, it's more of a Shen tonic. It nourishes the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And the heart is where our mind is in Chinese medicine. It's where not our brain, our thinking mind, but like our feeling, our sense of self.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about trauma and disturbing dreams and not feeling at home in our own body, that's like really Shen. Shen is sometimes translated as spirit, sometimes as mind, but it's this idea of like the part of ourselves we can't really just put down on paper.
That's nice.
Yeah, just came up with that. I should say they're different. Like mimosa bark moves the Shen. It helps kind of clear things out so the Shen can like feel more at home. Whereas reishi is a little different. Reishi is much more nourishing. In Chinese medicine, to actually kind of nourish the heart blood, and I believe the heart qi as well, but it nourishes the heart, which is where our spirit resides. So it helps our mind feel more at rest. It gives our mind like a place I feel like it helps our mind feel more at home in our body so that we can feel more rested. Because it's a part of trauma this really challenging part of trauma is this feeling of not being safe in our own body. And so it doesn't matter where you go or what the situation is going on outside of us. There can be this sense of like not feeling at home, not feeling at rest. And that's just a really challenging one to work with. I mean, both as a client and as a practitioner, both as someone who's experiencing that and as someone who's trying to help someone who's experiencing that. And reishi is not a cure-all, but it's something that moves us a bit more in that direction of kind of like nourishing the heart so that there can be this feeling of settledness. I think of reishi specifically when there's like disturbed dreams, people waking up in the middle of the night. And even like the heart racing kind of piece, there is that piece of like reishi really helps settle the heart. Technically settle the Shen. Herbs are different in Chinese medicine, but there is this feeling of settledness that comes when using reishi.
Yeah, this is so beautiful to hear you talk about CoreyPine. I've been working with reishi every day, I think, since October. I actually got to go mushroom foraging out in Eugene, Oregon, and Taylor, a friend, found a reishi and harvested it and gifted it to us. So we sliced it and dried it, and we're just drinking that out of the crock pot, and it just felt like it made all of my cells come to life. It was just like the vitality that came from that was so lovely. And so after that, now I've just been using the stuff that I've been buying, which I have to say the stuff that I was harvested was really, had that extra special love in it probably. But all these things that you're describing, there's like a clarity and a vitality that I feel like is just kind of like washing the Shen clean or something. I don't know how to really describe it, but yeah, as you're talking about it, I'm like, yeah, reishi. Wow, just been really loving reishi. And it's an interesting combination. I didn't see you choosing reishi for mimosa bark. I don't know why. I didn't know what I expected, but that sounds very like an interesting combination there.
Yeah, and it's a nice just little pair to go along with that kind of, I guess I went right to the trauma piece. I guess if I was working with someone with depression, kind of like a melancholy depression, Mimosa bark might go nicely with something like lemon balm, maybe St. John's wort. Uplift the spirit. If it is more of a heart thing, a feeling that people really feel their anxiety or depression in their chest, I might go more with motherwort. Motherwort's more for anxiety than depression, but that feeling of pressure in the chest or palpitations. A lot of times, I have it in my mind that one day I'm going to study somatic experiencing or some kind of somatic body work, because it really fascinates me. Or not body work, but somatic work, I should say, because it talks about something that I feel is really true, that like we hold trauma, and not just, we think about trauma, often we think about like people who've been in war zones, but we've all, I mean, if you live in this culture, you've probably had some experience of trauma. Even if it was just something that happened, driving a car or something. I'm not going to name specific types of trauma. I don't want to bring it up for anyone, but we all have like pieces of trauma we carry in us. We have times in our lives where something has been more than we could deal with in that moment, which is really the definition of trauma. And we kind of shrunk a little bit or closed a little bit or dissociated, took ourselves out of our body a little bit, separated from our body because it felt too painful to feel into our body. And so when I'm working with people who have any kind of trauma or anxiety or depression, one of the questions I ask is, where do you feel that in your body? Like, how does that manifest in your body? Not everybody knows, and I don't pressure them. If some people are just not in touch with their body. It's hard. It can even bring up emotional pain to like really start feeling into their body. And so there's like a turning away from it. But if they can, and they feel comfortable with it, it's a question that I really learned from the little bit of somatic experiencing that I have. I've gone to a few classes. Is like, when you feel this, where in your body do you feel it? Can you describe it? Like, does it have a color? Does it have a sense? Does it have a smell? And sometimes I think about what herbs I want to help someone with based upon where they feel it. If they're feeling it more in their chest, it might be more motherwort, more reishi. They're feeling anxiety and it's more like tensing in their stomach. Maybe it's more chamomile. Maybe it's more hops. Tight, tense shoulders. Maybe it's kava. Maybe it's pedicularis, depending upon, which is the better herb for them and, the match. But that also helps me kind of figure out like, oh yeah, like where does this manifest? For them, it helps them get in touch with their body. So just the question by itself is therapeutic, meaning them answering the question, kind of tuning in, is helpful. And then but it also gives me some information I can use to choose better herbs for them.
I like this, the way you're approaching formulation from kind of the somatic and, the felt sensations in the body. I'm also, I just have this memory that after my dad died, which was several years ago now, a listener sent me a bottle and it was called Hug in a Bottle, and sent me this tincture blend. And I can't remember what was in the formula now, but I remember mimosa definitely was. And I just remember just that care that went into that, it was very touching. And and I, like you had said earlier, that you said mimosa is like a hug. And it's a lovely way to think about that. Yeah. I bet there's a lot of like hugs in a bottle, hugs in a jar, hugs in a mug, describing mimosa out there.
Oh yeah, hugs in a mug. Ooh, that's a new one though. I hadn't heard that one before. I like that. We went through a lot.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, as you may or may not know, but like when I saw you at IHS, I was teaching a class on mutual aid and disaster relief. And for a year after, I live in Western North Carolina. We had a big hurricane hit here in September of 2024. And I was a part of the Appalachian Herb Collective, and I was helping to me and another person were like running the Barnardsville Free Clinic out in our small town of Barnardsville in suburban rural Asheville. Mimosa was one of the herbs we used a lot. It was one of the herbs I used in a lot of the formulas, because that kind of after a disaster, even people who don't directly experience the disaster, what I mean to say is even people who don't have a direct effect because of disaster, a lot of times they have indirect effects. So maybe a tree didn't fall on their house. Like their house is fine, they're fine, but maybe they had a family member, or maybe their friend had their house washed away, or maybe they weren't even there. Maybe I had friends who had a lot of survival guilt, secondary trauma, because they were like visiting a friend in Florida when the hurricane came through, and they weren't even here, and they felt so bad when they came back and heard all the bad stories that happened. And so, but yeah, there was a lot of sleep issues, and mimosa bark was one of the ones I used for people who couldn't sleep well after the storm, especially if it was like one of those things where maybe their house wasn't okay, or whether the house wasn't okay, like maybe they were fast asleep and they woke up and a tree had fallen within, like they heard a loud noise and the tree fell like 2 feet from their house. I heard so many stories of things that like almost happened, like just misses. There were like as many horror stories as there's so many like beautiful stories of like, wow, this person was just protected, and there was like they didn't get hit by that tree. They just didn't have, but it still feels hard to fall back asleep, maybe especially on a rainy night or a windy night, knowing that, having that, even though in our brains we know like, oh, it's not a hurricane outside, I'm totally fine, and this house is sturdy, but there's some part of our body that remembers like, oh, wind bad, rain bad. And so it brings that up within our body, and we can't outthink our body. And that's where the herbs come in, because they don't work on our brain, they work on our body, and they help us relax and let go that held trauma.
I guess that's such a beautiful way to talk about that. Yeah.
And I'm just recognizing, I guess I should have known when I picked mimosa, I would end up talking more about trauma.
I think it's
really
something
think about that ahead of time.
Yeah, we can all benefit from, I'm sure. Out here on the West Coast, I'm resonating with everything you're saying, but here it's the fires. So 10 years ago and 9 years ago, we went through some really, really incredible fires here. And yeah, there's still, I will never get through a fire season the same. I mean, you get those same conditions, and it's like the body is just on high alert now.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
Well, that's I really liked how you said that, it's a lot of these times we can't rationalize our way out of something when it's, the body is thinking so fast there. And so we have these plants that we get to rely on to help us through them. So it's a really beautiful way to say that.
Oh yeah. Thanks.
And this recipe that you've shared with us is also beautiful. Speaking of formulating, you had mentioned earlier before we went on air that you're really into elixirs, and I'm so glad that you're sharing an elixir with us, because this is a very people are going to love making this, and and it's, you can think this will be happiness in a jar for sure. Anyway, would you go over the peach mimosa elixir for us and just kind of walk folks through it?
Oh, thank you. I had fun with this. I just want to preface this by saying I first made this because during the pandemic, I was going to a place to do veggie pickups. I would buy a weekly box of produce and go to this place and pick it up. Mother Earth Foods here in Asheville. And one day I was the last person to pick up my box, and she's like, "Oh, do you want some peaches?" I said, "Sure." And she brought out a peck of peaches, which is like a box, probably what is that, 2 feet wide, a foot deep. Peaches, just lots of peaches, millions of peaches for free. It was great. And I was like, what do I do with all these? And I made peach cobbler, I made peach smoothies. And I'm like, and right around that same time, mimosas were blooming. And I was like, if you remember 2020, it was a little bit of a rough year for, reasons.
Was it? Huh. Okay. I don't know. I'm disassociated from it, CoreyPine.
I think I have too. One of these days, maybe in 20 years, we'll make a movie about 2020. Until then, we're not going to think about it. And I was like, because I started off thinking oh, I'll just make a peach syrup. That'll be great. I like putting peach syrup, because I do that sometimes. I have extra fresh fruit, and I just boil it up with some sugar, make a quick fruit syrup, and you put that on pancakes, French toast, make a soda out of it, whatever you like. Been really into sodas lately, using the elixirs. And after making the peach syrup, I was like, ooh, I could put the mimosa flowers in there and make it medicinal. And that was the birth of the peach mimosa elixir.
Brilliant.
And not only that, but we've talked about the medicine of mimosa, but peach, something I've learned from Phyllis D. Light, the great folk herbalist out of Alabama, Arab, Alabama. I was in a class with her and she talked about how peach leaves are used for grief and trauma in Southern culture. That I don't see it as much, to be honest, like up here in the mountains, but down there in the foothills, because she's in Alabama, it's still the foothills of the Appalachians. Well, it's still the Appalachians, actually. Sorry, Phyllis. And that someone was grieving, they'd bring like a pot of peach leaf tea over. And so I started using peach leaf tea and incorporating that into my practice. And it's very cooling. Mm-hmm. It's very easy, just as like ginger is really easy to teach people about the energetics. It's like, oh, it's the heating herb. Peach leaf is like the cooling herb. It's good for like sunstroke, for grief, for like too much emotion, too much heat, too much agitation, irritation, anxiety, insomnia, even the irritation of like poison ivy. I've used peach leaf topically. Peach fruit still has some of that medicine, even though it's not quite as powerful as just the leaf. And so that's another reason why I like pairing the peach and the mimosa. Mm-hmm. And I start off making so the actual recipe, I make the peach mimosa elixir by boiling the peaches, chopping them up, taking the pit out, because the pit has some medicine on its own, but it also has a little bit of poison. So, medicine, poison, interesting balance there. But we decide that's a different medicine for a different time. I take the pits out and I put the, probably the recipe that I shared on there. And you can make this scalable. I gave a specific recipe, but, for about, basically you do like an equal amount, however much weight you have of peaches, once you've taken the pit out and then you weigh them, you use about that much water and that much sugar. So you want equal parts sugar and water to make the simple syrup. So when I do it in metric. So I do like 1,000 mils of water and 1,000 mils of cane sugar. But I think the recipe I did was like, what did we do? We did do like 8 ounces of sugar, 8 ounces of water.
Cup. Yeah, we did cups. Made it real easy for folks.
Exactly. So like a cup of sugar.
Oh, a half pound of fresh peaches for 1 cup of sugar. Yeah.
Exactly. So like a half pound is 8 ounces by weight. You do a cup of sugar, cup of water. Easy. But you can scale it up. You can scale that down. Well, if you scale it down too much, you might boil off your water. So don't probably wouldn't want to get too much smaller than that, because there's some technical problems there. But I just kind of like boil it up together until like the peach is pretty mush. And I kind of like mush it up a little bit after it's been boiling for a while. Then I strain out the peaches. I reheat the water back up and I throw in the mimosa flowers. To be honest, the first time I made it, I had the hot water, turned it off the heat because I don't want to, they're flowers, they're delicate. We don't want to boil them. So I just stuffed the pot with mimosa flowers. I don't know how much I put in there the first time I made it. I was like, just throw them in there. Keep throwing them in there. And then I think I had extra. So I let it sit for an hour. First time I made it, I let it sit for a couple hours, strained them out, heated it up to like the steam was coming off the surface, and just did it again. It depends how, when I did it that way, it actually was pretty medicinal, so it depends how medicinal an elixir you want, or how much you just want to like have a fun, tasty treat that's mildly elevating. But an elixir really isn't supposed to be strong medicine. It's supposed to be, fun medicine, and it's like a cordial. Yeah, then you strain that out. I mean, honestly, the way I do it right now is I add the mimosa flowers and I just let it steep overnight. I'll let it steep. I just like leave it in there for 8 hours and then strain it out in the morning.
Nice. And then further preserving it, we should say, with the brandy.
Yeah. And if you want to make this alcohol free, if you don't do alcohol, you don't need to add the brandy. I would just refrigerate it and then use it within a few weeks. I'm not really great at the math yet of like exactly how long something will last, but typically equal parts sugar and water will last for like at least a week, maybe a few weeks in the refrigerator. And then if you want it to last longer, you could actually add more sugar. Like Juliette Blancaspor in her like amazing book, which I should know the name of, and I'm looking to see if I have it right there, but I don't. She gives a simple syrup recipe with 2 cups of sugar to 1 cup of water, and then infuses the herbs in there, and that lasts for months. So that's got a very strong, simple syrup. But if you add brandy to it, then you don't need to refrigerate it. The sugar preserves some, and the brandy preserves some. But again, if you start seeing mold, if the taste starts going off, if you start seeing like, floaties in there, then just, don't drink that anymore.
Yeah. When I was younger, I had this habit of like, I would make something and I'd be like, oh, this is so precious and so amazing that I want it forever. And I'll just have a little bit and a little bit. And I'm so over that now. Like if I make it or if somebody gives it to me, whatever it is like becomes my objective to use it up as quickly as possible. Like that, because I just feel like things accumulate and then they get forgotten. And I can't tell you how many things have just been forgotten and then they go bad. And so now it's just like, yeah, someone gives me something, I make something. It's just like, now I'm on it. I'm going to use it. I'm not talking about throwing back like shots of tinctures or anything, but it does become a focus. Like I must get through this in time. So sometimes when people are like, oh, can I freeze this? Or, oh, like, how can I make this last as long as possible? I said, no, we're over that now. Now we just use it up as fast as possible. We aren't guaranteed tomorrow, so we just got to go for it.
I love that perspective because I actually I am kind of one of those people like I harvested prickly pears when I was out in Wilmington, prickly pear fruit when I was out in Wilmington a couple months ago. And it's like, ooh, I only have like this little basket of them. How do I keep this going? And it's like but some of them I juiced and we just drank the juice. We made it into soda, but then I also froze a few in ice cubes so I can make juice later. But will I? I don't know. Use them up now.
Yeah, because then what happens to ice cubes? They get the freezer burn on them or whatever. Yeah, use it up.
Right.
Yeah, make way for new things. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Born really because I was the worst. Just like saving all the things. So yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing this recipe with us. And for our listeners, you can go to herbswithrosalieepodcast.com or check out the show notes and get your beautifully illustrated recipe card. This is one I highly recommend making. And we are kind of in the winter right now. You could get frozen peaches. You could use another fruit. I mean, there's so many different opportunities with this recipe. And when you do make it and you have your little hug in a bottle, let us know how it goes in the comments. We always love hearing just how folks are using in the recipes, how they landed for them. And then often when you make something and share about it, inspires other people to make it too.
Yeah,
thanks
totally.
Again, CoreyPine, for sharing this one with us.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you for mentioning that about the frozen peaches. There's no reason where you have to use fresh peaches. Just buy them frozen and they'll be already measured because you buy a half-pound bag or a 1-pound bag. You know exactly how much is in there. And the same thing with mimosa.
I was actually just thinking about how I have frozen peaches in my freezer. So I was inspired that.
Yeah, me too. You gotta always have some frozen fruit in there, just in case. Although we only live for, who knows if it'll be tomorrow. So maybe we should just make it all into a smoothie tonight. I don't know.
There you go. You're catching on.
But I've actually done the same with the mimosa flowers. If you've never harvested mimosa flowers, it does take some time. They're beautiful. They're abundant. They are, some would say, weedy. I've seen them Pennsylvania, New York, all the way south to Florida, all the way west to, I've driven across country. I see them all the way through Oklahoma, Kansas, eastern Colorado. Do you have them? Do they grow up in Washington? Are they a tree up here?
Not where I live specifically, but I was just in Hood River this summer. So just 5 hours south of me. And it was actually fun. I was just walking in this neighborhood and I came upon a tree and it was in flower. And I was like, so delighted. And I said it out loud, like, oh, a mimosa. And I was like, looking at it. Or maybe I didn't say the name, but I didn't realize the owners were sitting right behind the tree. And you could tell I was not the first one to be delighted. And they came out and they told me about the mimosa. And I was like, so it was, you could tell it. They were just like, oh,
Aw.
a new person falling in love with this tree. So, yeah, so it was 5 hours south of me at least.
Nice. That's great because I just haven't seen them out west, but I'm not out west that much anymore.
Yeah.
I thought, because in the recipe I said use fresh mimosa flowers because it does exist in a lot of the United States and Asia. Don't know about Europe. I know you have people in this podcast probably from all over the world. I'm not sure about every place. But you can always buy dried mimosa if you don't have access to fresh mimosa. And, maybe what would be the recipe? Maybe twice as much? What do you think, Rosalee?
That's a general rule of thumb. Yeah.
Yeah. Seems like a good bet.
Mm-hmm.
I also wanted to say that mimosa is the common name because but the botanical name is Albizia julibrissin. The reason I'm pointing this out is that mimosa is the correct botanical name for another plant. For example, like Mimosa pudica or other plants in the mimosa genus, which have a different medicine to them. So we are talking about the mimosa tree or the silk tree, Albizia julibrissin. Just to be clear, we're not talking about the sensitive plant.
Yeah. Right. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And so we've just talked about this wonderful recipe, the wonderful medicine of mimosa flowers, mimosa bark. I'm curious, are there any contraindications that folks should be aware of when they're thinking about working with this plant?
Yes. I'm glad you asked that because I haven't seen this written in books, but I've heard kind of, how do you say this? I forget the word, but when people talk about, I've heard people say,
word of mouth.
I've heard, yeah, thank you. There you go. I've heard word of mouth that some people with bipolar disorder, mimosa, I think maybe the flower more so, but I would say the flower and bark too potentially can bring on manic tendencies. So if someone is bipolar, they have manic episodes and depressive episodes. In my local community, I know that there's a couple of herbalists here, Janet Kent and Dave Meesters, who have specifically talked about they've seen it bring on mania in people who are just have a disposition for that. So I would just say people with a previous diagnosis of bipolar, I would just avoid this.
Yeah.
And I think that's my main caution. I am not sure of interactions with, psychopharmaceuticals like anti-anxiety or antidepressants. I should have looked it up before the talk, but I haven't. So I would just be careful because it does have this action. It might have a serotonin effect. It might have an actual effect on serotonin receptors. So I would just probably avoid using it or look up those contraindications before using it while also taking any kind of antidepressant, antipsychotic, or anti-anxiety medication, just to be on the safe side.
Always a good idea. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Well, before we move on, CoreyPine, is there anything else that you'd like to share about mimosa that we maybe haven't hit upon yet?
I will say that the best time to harvest it is in June, right after the flowers first come out. There's a time when you can harvest it when the bark just slips right off. You can just take the thing, take the limb and you make a cut down. You make you circle around and you make another circle, maybe like a foot beneath it, 12 inches beneath it. And then you cut in between the two circles and you can just peel that bark right off. It comes off so easily.
Oh, that's my advice. Thanks for that. Yeah. Nice.
Wild crafting tips. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing so much wisdom about mimosa. I'm feeling re-inspired as a plant. As I mentioned, I wanted to have on the show for a long time. So thanks for bringing this medicine to us. And I'd now like to transition to hearing what you've got going on in North Carolina, what your offerings are. Let's hear all about it.
Cool. I will say, so one of the things that I do is an in-person herb school, which is becoming less and less common these days. More and more herb
Yeah.
schools are going online. There's a great advantage to being online. There's great things about it. Um, but I'm kind of old school. I liked it when I was like sitting with Seven Song. I liked it when I was sitting with Michael. I feel like there's a transmission that can happen when you're sitting with an herbalist in person. So I do a 6-month class, the holistic herbalism class, in the mountains outside of Asheville, North Carolina, and even like so it's a holistic herbalism program. It runs April through October every year. It's an all outdoors class. Some of it is actually under a roof, so like we're safe from the rain, except on plant walks. And then you take what you can get. You go with the weather. But then I also do like these 4-week. If you kind of like live in the area, or if you want to come stay in the area for a little bit, I do these wild medicine internships, which are 4 plant walks. We go out like all day Saturday, 4 Saturdays in a row. And what I like about that, when I used to do like these like short 2-hour plant walks, you could see a few plants and talk about them, but you spend 4 days with each other and we can talk about like the botany. What plant family is this in? What does this tell us? How is this plant different than this plant? And you see the same plant several times in a row. You see what is it like down in like, kind of a low wet area? What is it like on a dry, windy ridge? How are the plants different? What plants tend to grow there? And so that's my real passion. I love just being out in the woods and like sharing stories with people. That's really what it's all about for me. It's like, let's come on a hike with me.
Oh, I love that. It is precious to get out in the real world with real folks and the plants and everything. I highly recommend that. My first apprenticeship was 3 years, and I just, we could not replace that. It's all outdoors. It's the best way to be introduced to plants.
Yeah, I love it. And I've even had some students who were doing online classes. Like last year, I had someone who's doing David Winston's class, and someone else who was doing a class in Colorado, and they came on the class because they're like, so I'm learning all the herbal information, but I want to actually meet the plants that I'm learning about. And so it's a nice adjunct for them to help. And I guess I haven't mentioned yet, but I also wrote a book. I wrote a book, Southeast Medicinal Plants. It's a guide to how to identify, harvest, and use 106 plants of the Southeast. And I really did try. I put a strong effort into not just doing the plants of the Southern Appalachians, but really everything from like the coast of Maryland and Delaware all the way down to Central Florida, west to East Texas, up to Arkansas, Kentucky. So if you can't study in person with me, I guess I kind of wrote that book because, as I mentioned at the beginning of the class, beginning of the podcast, I teach so many classes, beginning of the podcast, I said I really wanted to be a writer, and this is how I became a writer. I just finally wrote an herb book. And I also mentioned how one of my books I had when I was out in Oregon was Medicinal Plants of the Mountain West by Michael Moore. Classic. And my book was really inspired by Michael's books. I just really wrote it from this point of view of like, well, how do you know that that's black cohosh? How do you know it's black cohosh and not baneberry? And then how do you harvest it? What are the sustainable and ethical questions you need to ask about harvesting that particular plant? Then how do you actually use it for like a real human being and not just like, oh, this plant, it's like good for cramps and uterus stuff. But like, what is like?
So you talk about like digestive herbs after you eat 3 chimichangas on a road trip, at 1 a.m. It's very Michael Moore.
That sounds like a Michael Moore quote. Huh?
That is pretty much.
Totally. Yeah. I should have. Damn it. You see, maybe they'll give me a chance to do a second edition. I'll try to sneak that in. So I did.
Well, something I highly recommend with these books that are bioregional is a really fun thing to do is go look at that table of contents and look at the plants that are in there, because sometimes we can think like, oh, like I don't live in the Southeast, but really there's going to be plants in there that we care about and want to learn about, like ones you've already mentioned. Black cohosh would be a lovely one there.
Oh yeah. I mean, like Southern Appalachians, the Southeast is really like the breadbasket of American herbal medicine.
That's true.
I've got like, going to say some plants grown on my land, but there's some plants I shouldn't talk about that are legal. I'm not talking about any, but that like grow wild on my land that I shouldn't talk about. But I have like, if I walk up the mountain behind my house, I have to like step around the black cohosh plants. That's how abundant it
Wow.
is here. And I have like
Wow.
wild yam on my land,
Mhm.
sassafras growing like right over there, bloodroot. It's just just an amazing place to like study herbs.
Yeah.
Like it.
Yeah. If it
And
wasn't really
Washington's
humid,
also
I would
beautiful.
visit more often, but the humidity and me, we just don't get along. So that's the
What?
price
Oh,
you pay.
humidity.
Yeah.
What's great about
Yeah. I'm a
being up in the
desert
mountains?
gal. I hear
Yeah,
that. I hear that. Like people say it's not so bad.
it's not
Yeah.
Raleigh. I mean, Raleigh's a
Yeah.
great town, but like you go to mid-state North Carolina, the humidity can be oppressive. But we're up in the mountains.
Yeah.
It's a little.
Okay. We'll see. I'll be sensitive. Well, if folks are wanting to find you, your courses, your offerings, where's the best place for them to go?
Hmm. Probably the best place to, kind of like learn more about the school and me is like the school website, blueridgeschool.org. I got that in the early 2000s and didn't realize you're not supposed to be so close to another herb school because don't go to blueridgeschool.com unless you're looking for a boys prep school in Virginia. But I am blueridgeschool.org. And also, I'm on Instagram a lot, Blue Ridge School Herbal Medicine. It's the name of my school, but there's no of because I couldn't fit it all into the name. So it's Blue Ridge School Herbal Medicine.
Nice. Nice. I follow you there. Highly recommend it. And
Follow me too.
yep. Before you go, I've got one last question for you, CoreyPine, and that is, how do
Ooh.
herbs instill hope in you?
Ooh. I love how we talked before about how part of the way of working with trauma is to remind our body that we're safe at home in our body. Paraphrasing, I feel that like being with the plants, and to me, this is like why I feel like wildcrafting is such an important part of my life. But if not wildcraft, at least like being in the woods, being with the plants, even if you live in a city, like even if you're in like live in Manhattan, just go to like Central Park and walk around there. You don't have to like go to like the deep woods. You don't have to like go to the back of beyond to find nature. Just being with the plants. I find that learning the plants and what they do for food and medicine, it reminds us that we are at home on this earth. We aren't these separate, disconnected little bobs that just happen to be on this planet, that we evolved from this planet. We're at home on this planet, that the plants, our ancestors existed in relationship to all these plants and all these animals, and we can reconnect with that relationship. And that feeling of being at home in the world is such a beautiful gift of herbal medicine. And I think it's something that our modern world really needs. It's like, how do we step away from screens and kind of connect with that feeling of at homeness that our ancestors felt? And that just gives me this, deep sense of peace that that's probably why I became an herbalist in the first place, is just that sense of peace I felt like when I'm like out in the woods, out in nature, and just, sitting with the plant.
That's so beautiful, CoreyPine. That really speaks to me because I think ultimately that for me personally, that is the gift of the plants. And there was a time in my life where I thought the gifts was purely the medicinal action. Like, oh, yeah, I can use arnica on a bruise. Cool. But the deeper I got into it, I realized, that is the true gift, feeling at home on this earth and the realness of it, in a world that can feel increasingly not real. And I love
Right.
how that was like you talked about being around a fire with somebody who had a cough, and then there's the mullein plant, and then then the tea is made. Like there's just something so very real about that. That's such a beautiful thing, and just to be able to look to the living world around you and see that reciprocity, recognize the interdependence there. I mean, all of that, like you said, brings deep peace and for me also joy and just this sense of wonder at
Yes.
it all. So thank you for sharing that. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're welcome.
And
No,
thank you so much for being here, CoreyPine. It's been so lovely to have some time with you and to hear about the medicine of mimosa and reishi and every other thing that we touched upon. I mean, just even your talk about formulation and trauma and how that affects us and the somatic experiences of those. I mean, everything's just been so lovely. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Rosalee. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and yeah, I feel like I've went to some places I wasn't expecting to go to. So I hope people really enjoy this conversation, and I imagine that people like get something from this that like stays with them is my hope.
I have no doubt. Absolutely. Well, thanks again, CoreyPine.
Yeah, thank you, Rosalee.
Thanks so much for listening. You can download your illustrated recipe card from today's episode. Just head to herbswithrosaleepodcast.com or check out the show notes for a link. And if you're not already subscribed, I'd love to have you as part of this herbal community so I can deliver even more herbal goodies your way. This podcast is made possible, in part, by our awesome students. This week's student spotlight is on Karen Ciancetta in upstate New York. Well, Karen's currently enrolled in the Herbal Energetics course, where she brings a deeply thoughtful and focused approach to her learning. With years of herbal experience, she's using this course to better understand why herbs work the way they do, connecting her past experiences with new insights. She describes bitter herbs as a marvelous teacher, helping her slow down, listen more closely, and find balance. Working with oats as her sweet herbal ally, Karen explored tinctures, infusion foods, and even baths, building a steady daily relationship with the plant. Over time, she noticed a greater sense of grounding and resilience, showing how small, consistent practices can lead to meaningful change. To honor her contributions, Mountain Rose Herbs is sending Karen a $50 gift certificate to stock up on their incredible selection of organically and sustainably sourced herbal supplies. Thank you so much to Mountain Rose Herbs for supporting our amazing students. And if you'd like to deepen your skills as an herbalist, you can check out my foundational courses at herbswithrosalee.com. All right, you've made it to the very end of the show, which means you get your very own gold star and this herbal tidbit. Well, after we pressed stop on the recording, CoreyPine mentioned that he actually makes and sells that Mimosa peach elixir that we shared about. So if you were listening and you're thinking like, wait, I want that, but I don't want to make it, you're in luck. I'll put CoreyPine's link in the show notes for that. And since we spent just a little time on contraindications in this episode, I did a quick safety check with the Botanical Safety Handbook. That's my #1 recommended source for herbs and safety. And they do give mimosa the highest safety rating. There's a couple of things I'll note, but with pregnancy and breastfeeding, safety hasn't been conclusively established, which is often the case with herbs. It's generally a hard thing to do. And then there's the caution that we discussed in this episode. There's some herbalists advising avoiding it or being very cautious with bipolar disorder due to concern about it triggering manic tendencies. But this is more something of clinical observations. It's not in the Botanical Safety Handbook, but something worth noting for sure. And if you'd like a completely different kind of nerdy delight, mimosa isn't just loved by herbalists. It's also a pollinator magnet. In North America, it attracts honeybees, bumblebees, butterflies, and even ruby-throated hummingbirds. Thanks again for joining me. I'll see you in the next episode.